Hello, everybody, and welcome to Getting APIs to Work. Today, we'll talk about API marketing. And with that, we have an expert in that field, Heiko Dosch, who is API marketing and community manager at Commerzbank. Hey, Heiko, how are you doing? Thanks for joining.
Yeah, thanks. I'm good. Thanks for having me, Eric. How are you?
Yeah, thanks for joining for this video. So, brief introduction about Heiko. So, I have a lot of people now who are following me, who are API product owners and API product managers. So I see a lot of API product related roles. What I don't see much are API marketing related roles. And Heiko is one such rare beast who does API marketing. And I'm wondering, what are you doing? I think that's something that we don't see this much, but I think it's really cool that we have people who have this role. So tell us a little bit about what you do as an API marketing and community manager.
Yeah, glad to do that. Well, Eric, it's to exactly describe what I'm doing the whole day long is important to know a little bit more about marketing in general. I'm afraid. I don't want to bore anybody here, but most product managers, as their name says, are very closely related to the real product and its development and its price as well. There are two more P's, if you want to call it that way. That's an old definition of marketing from a guy named Kotler. I really stick to in a way, even if it's kind of outdated. The third P, which is not covered by a product manager, is the placement, which means that there should be some kind of sales force in place to get these APIs to their consumers and sell it at the end. And the fourth P is my domain, which is the promotional field of marketing, where you can include every single task which helps to get this offering to the consumers prior to selling it, of course, and making them aware of you as a player, as a provider of APIs, and also maybe of some knowledge and some other capabilities. And that's what I care about with my team, and doing a lot of press stuff, conferences, and things like that, just to make people know, yes, Commerzbank also offers APIs.
Yeah, and I think that so the 4P model that you mentioned, I think that is something when I just looked a little bit at marketing and products, right? The 4P model, I think, is something that you find very quickly. It's kind of an old model, very much centered around, I think, traditionally physical products. And there are some more elaborate models, I would say, that we can talk about at a later time. But I think what's interesting is that we definitely do see, and we've seen that in the API space, that the perspective shifts a little bit from just producing APIs, this idea of once I've created an API, my job is done, to also think about, no. If APIs are important and driving business, we should make sure that they're also getting consumed. Because as I like to say, an API that isn't consumed has zero value. And what we don't see this much, I think, right now so far is really having the specific role that you're having. And one of the things that I find interesting, and maybe you can talk about that very briefly, is in the work that you're doing, the APIs you mentioned right now are the externally facing APIs. Are you also covering, is that part of your job, the internal facing APIs, or right now are you exclusively focused on the externally facing APIs?
So I'm covering both, and we just have a look back when starting this API program at Commerzbank, and we did it kind of inside out, right? So we started focusing on establishing this technology within the bank and doing lots of activities to make this change happen. And I don't mean the technological change only, but also it's a mind change, of course. And you need to make people use this technology, you make people understand this technology, and you need to make people don't be afraid of this technology, or maybe try to convince them of the benefits and I would say it's a matter of managing the change internally usually, and that's what we did some years ago. And we just shifted our focus a little bit within the last few quarters, opening up more and more and getting these APIs, which we produced some time ago for the internal use, and expose it to the outside as well, or in addition to that. And which means it's another focus, but it's also another marketing goal and marketing, or it means you need to come up with certain other activities, and you're dealing it with that in another way in the outside market rather than internally, right?
I'm sure it is a different way how to do that. If I could ask you very make it as brief as possible, what's the biggest difference that you would see between, because you have experience in both now, which is great. What's the biggest difference between like your API marketing job, so to speak, for the internal APIs, the internally facing ones, and the externally facing ones? What do you see as kind of the defining difference between those two?
I think the internal change needs some more thoughts of how to deal with your coworkers and their expectations, their needs, their sorrows. I don't know, and to some are pretty curious about new technologies, of course, and some are not. And for those who are not, you might also need something like a management buy-in, or some directives or orders or processes. And what helped us a lot internally was to establish some roundtables and some guidelines for how to get together and to collaborate on that in that regard. And on the outside, it's more about creating or getting awareness, because you're not the only one who's offering these APIs. Of course, there are some others, even if it's a quite new market. It's more about a step, or getting a profile, getting this awareness as a player and as a provider.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point, right? If you do it like the externally facing one, oftentimes there's competition that you have to deal with. So internally facing, that's not something, but then there's the collaboration aspect that maybe is the challenging one. So maybe that's actually a very good kind of first view at these two differences. So I'm wondering, in terms of your learning so far, seeing that there are not so many dedicated roles like the one that you're having, how do you see, how's API marketing going like forward? Is that something that you see will be established as a role much more often, or do you think it's only something for, let's say, large organizations who want to transform, maybe internally and or externally facing? So do you think a lot more people with your role will show up, or do you think that's still kind of a niche thing that maybe we won't see in that many organizations?
I think it depends very much on how your company is set up, what type of organization it is, not only the size of the company, but more who's responsible, who's in charge for this API, who's the business owner. And I think there are many tasks who can also be covered by an API product manager. But you don't need to create a specific role to do API marketing. I think it's more like an attitude, and what's important or what's most important is to get into a feedback loop with your consumers, to start a dialogue and getting their needs and their requirements into your development process in time. Right.
But I mean, that's exactly the expertise that you're bringing, I think, because like speaking from personal experience, it always seemed to me when I talk to companies who want to set up their API programs and they go through the process, as you were saying, of like having to sell APIs internally, how do we explain what that means and how people can participate. This whole process of how do I best do this so that people start embracing this concept is something where I thought somebody with your expertise oftentimes could actually help a lot, because in the end, right, finding the right mix of how do I market this internally and how do I market it externally. Of course, I mean, you can just make something up, which is what I did, but it may not be the best stuff that you make up, right? So I like, to me, it actually seems somebody with your experience oftentimes could help a lot, given that we see so much investment now into API programs, where you think, well, if you're investing so much into an API program, maybe into investing into making it successful also would be a nice little cherry on top of that.
Yes, I think it's more about what needs to be done in order to fulfill, right, or to achieve your goals, rather than who's doing what, right? I think it's most important is to get the right API to the right consumers, okay, and not start pushing something which is ready to be deployed in production, but no one wants.
We have something here. Why don't we try this one?
Yeah, right. And so I think the one bigger part of API marketing is as mentioned, the dialogue and the consumer feedback while developing this API and deploying it. And the other one is how to create awareness for your offering and make people aware of your capabilities, not only as an API provider, but also maybe as a partner, as a consultant, as an ecosystem participator, whatever. So there's so many roles, so many ideas to catch up with. I think it's just helpful to create or to think of APIs as a digital product, which is still very new in the market. So I think it's not about the size. The size doesn't help to create this role or this function in addition to your organization. It's more about your internal competition of products, right? So you need to come up with the right portfolio of APIs, but you also need to get something like a tone of voice and some resources, some money, some budgets, some joint efforts to push this product, called API, as a really serious product and to the right channels, right?
Okay, I think we have talked about so many things now that my offer to you would be, let's dive deeper into those things. And to everybody watching, if you're interested in more information about like how do I treat APIs as a product, like what's the marketing side of this, how do I build up an API program, internally facing, externally facing, I think there's so many interesting facets to explore, in particular with your particular perspective, that I would like to keep that as our option, so to speak, for future videos, because we already spoke about so many interesting things. But I think there's a lot of stuff there, and I think you're being a little overly modest, so to speak, in saying, anybody can do that. Of course, anybody can, but does everybody do that? And I think we're not there yet. And I think we can definitely explore a little bit more what that means and maybe what people might be missing today. Is that an offer that you would be willing to pick up?
I would be happy to do that, Eric.
Okay.
Every time.
Okay, great. So for today, I think let's wrap it up by just saying, okay, API marketing, it's something that actually is very important for APIs, because if they're not getting consumed, they have zero value. Always keep that in mind. Heiko, thanks so much for joining.
Thanks to you. Thanks for having me, and thanks for your questions.
Yeah, and thanks everybody for watching. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. If you would like to see more content around API marketing, let us know in the comments. As you've just heard, Heiko is willing to do more, so that's great. Thanks for that. And with that, we're done for today. Thanks everybody, and bye. Until next time.